Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video, and Blizzard is coming for your add-ons. You can't hide them in the baseboards. They will find them. It's seek and destroy. It is the Terminator. You're not going to be able to keep them safe. Blizzard has just released another update in regards to the fight against add-ons, the war on add-ons, and we're going to be reviewing it here. It's an interview from PC Gamer, and if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. I think this article is going to be important for knowing like what exact add-ons are they going to be targeting. Are we going to see any more discussion about PvP add-ons? Because we haven't really seen any. It's really just been focused on the rotation assistant, the one button macro, but we haven't seen really much broadened beyond that point. And also the timeline, like what's the timeline on this? So like when are they shutting the lights off on the add-ons? Is that going to be something that happens here? I'm hoping that we will find out throughout this interview. And they've said here the process is just beginning. They won't be turned off in the next two patches. Next two patches is still this expansion though. So very curious to see what the timeline ends up being for that. World of Warcraft senior game director Ian Hazzikostas recently warned players that add-ons and mods that predict or help players respond to things happening in combat will be disabled in the future. We caught up with him in a far-ranging interview to find out what specifically would be affected and why. You have your quest helpers, your gathering add-ons, you have your role-playing add-ons, and all that stuff is no concern. So, okay, so no cosmetic stuff. We already knew that. PvP add-ons might still tell you what classes you're facing, but won't tell you what cooldowns they've used. Auction house add-ons won't be touched. So, tell you what classes you'll be facing. What does that even mean? Like, the Gladius will show you the classes on this side, but Omnibar won't work? So, they're coming for your Omnibar. And their weak cores is what that sounds like. And they actually said PvP. Oh my God, it's literally like 3 sentences in. I thought I was gonna have to dig a little bit more for that. We got some PvP. All right, the goal is at the end of the day to get to a point where if asked, hey, do I need to use add-ons to play? The answer is, well, they'll give you a lot of options to customize your experience, but no, it's up to you. Today, if we're being honest, we can't say that. Because it is a huge advantage, right? Having a giant foghorn, weak aura pop up in the middle of your screen. Avenging Wrath, use something. Like, you're not even playing the game, right? Like, you can't even see the game. The weak aura box is up there. The audio is drowned out by foghorns. Like, you're just like, you're not even playing the game, man. It's not the same. He said Blizzard definitely won't take away combat log or aura hooks in patches 11.1.7 or 11.2, which leaves the door open for the final patches of the War Within expansion, including the pre-patch for the upcoming Midnight expansion later this year as a possible starting point. Now, to be honest, with how slow the cooldown manager has been, right? It came out, I don't know if any of you guys have used the cooldown manager. I haven't. It didn't really track a lot of the spells that I wanted. It seemed kind of cumbersome to try and get it set up, which I think is an important discussion point. Like, what's the track record with their implementation of these features, right? The arena frames, for example, I much prefer Gladius. I think it's just a way cleaner looking aesthetic. Vital information relative to the default arena frames that they updated, I think, just a few expansions ago that I don't like. I just don't like using them. I don't like tracking them, right? I think the Gladius is just a better way of displaying it. So are they going to just, go their way or the highway, even if players don't really like that aesthetic? Or can I customize the aesthetic? Is Gladius usable? Is it not usable? I think it's an important discussion. But as far as starting point, I feel like they're probably going to push that one down a lot. I don't know if they're intending for Midnight to be the first point where this is like the big set in stone thing, because I think they want to go slow with this. This is meant to be a philosophical kickoff and to begin the conversation with the community, Hazzikostas said. Add-ons have been a part of the game since its very earliest days. If we were to just come along one day and rip off that Band-Aid, it would be jarring. So yeah, this right there makes me think that they are not going to be going too fast with this. They're probably going to be going pretty slow. Mods that help and annoy. Blizzard is taking these steps in part because of player complaints about how many add-ons are needed to successfully complete raid and dungeon encounters, according to Hazzikostas. Yeah, that's been an ongoing thing, right? Everybody thinks like if Blizzard just turned off add-ons and banned add-ons, World of Warcraft is amazing. It's just saved. The best game ever. Is that true? I don't know. I definitely think it wouldn't hurt, but I don't know if it's going to completely revolutionize everyone's opinion about the game and everything is hunky-dory, just with that one thing. And I've said that in multiple videos, like one subjective opinion about one thing in the game, and that one thing will then suddenly everything is fantastic. I think it's a lot of different things working in tandem. So it's like, yeah, it's nice. This is something we can see tangibly work towards. It's probably a good idea, but like, does it save the game even at the end of the road? I don't know. Blizzard will be working on improvements to the in-game cooldown manager, visual effects, improvements to the game, UI edit mode, audio cues, and handling of nameplates for players and enemies. Are you going to do foghorns, bro? I don't know if it's. Are you saving the game? You're just taking the exterior foghorns and putting them into the interior foghorns? Interior crocodile, alligator. Why did that pop in my head? I don't know. But with the cooldown manager, let me know in the comments down below. Are you guys using it? Like, have you guys used the cooldown manager at all? Hazukosta said that the company heard loud and clear the player feedback to the first basic rollout of the cooldown manager, which was part of the recent troubled 11.1.5 patch, and now even further troubled with the corruptions. Although it seems like they've kind of zoned in at least to the player feedback. I think they removed some of the time gates with corruption, and they nerfed some of the corruptions in PvP. I think it's like at most the corruptions now are a 0.6% portion of your overall damage. So it's like, I'm not even going to go farm them. If it comes down to the last week and I'm pushing rank 1 and it's like I need to squeeze every single thing, maybe I'll get it on that one character, but I didn't like visions the first time around, and I hated having to do them, especially with the rotating vendor. I don't really want to do it again for 0.6%. I don't know if you guys are the same, but I don't think we have to really worry about it, which is nice. Players decried its simplicity, lack of functionality, and the fact that it could not be customized. Ironically, some mod makers immediately created add-ons to improvement, which I think is the reason why they haven't removed add-ons, right? Because it just lets them band-aid the base UI, right? It's like, well, if we let them do it, they'll just save the game and we don't have to, which I think is like, that's just like, that can't be the right perspective. But at the same time, the resources that the infinite universe has to build add-ons, you know, while Blizzard is a giant billion-dollar corporation, I don't know if it can actually compete with a global amount of add-on creators and publishers, like as far as quality and ongoing updates. Like, as weird as that sounds, that I think a billion-dollar company can't compete, I don't know if it can. It's the same thing with like when Dota was created in the Warcraft 3 map editor, right? And they thought that like, nah, we're not going to do anything with this. Like, we are the ones who make the best games. We are Blizzard. And then Dota just ran away, and look how big it is now. It's like, it's tough, you know. There's going to be a weird balance at least. The cooldown manager is so utterly featureless, it may as well not exist. See, again, this has been the track record for the in-game improvements for the UI has not been exactly pristine, right? So I think that is a fair criticism and concern that maybe, you know, can they actually deliver on that experience with the base UI? We know we're not going to replace a fully in-depth customizable add-on that you've been using for years and tailored to your personal gameplay with something that we have as an initial fixed offering, he said, but we're getting a whole bunch of feedback. So this is the thing, they kind of want to just release it into the wild as soon as possible so they can get all of those details and then iterate them in, because they don't think they can get all those details internally, right? Because it's millions of players versus an internal team of I don't know how many people, right? But we're getting a whole bunch of feedback about the ways in which it would need to change. I would only argue, though, is that I feel like a lot of people were critical of the PvP Arena Frame UI update, and then it's still the same as it is, and it's been years. So I don't know if it's just they're more now on board with that, or they have the resources that's allocated to this, and maybe that'll change. It's possible. But again, the track record, I definitely have concerns. We need to add customization and improve it to make it feel like it could be a reasonable substitute for a more advanced power user. In-game solutions may not be as good, and that could be okay. The task at Blizzard will be challenging, he said, but added that having a fixed development team and a slower update cycle doesn't mean that Blizzard solutions have to be, we have details at home, meme situation, or maybe it's okay if it is. Some of it is being guided by feedback to understand how we can bridge that gap for the majority of our players, and also to some extent accepting and hopefully getting folks to accept that it is 96% of perfect, Hazukosta said. In his most recent interview, he said this too, like, it's like you can't have perfect balance. It can't be perfect, but it's like, I don't, you know, where's the line on that? Like, how high quality are you really trying to aim for this? Because I think that is important. Your performance relying on rotation helper Hakili is still inferior to someone who has it all ingrained as muscle memory. There's always a higher skill ceiling. It's a critical flaw if the highlighted combat assistant recommendation for next ability is not reflecting the latest theory craft that was discovered yesterday. I don't know if that should be a deal breaker. Okay, so it seems like it's not going to be consistently updated, which could be a problem over time, right? Especially with how much frequent class tuning there is. Maybe the class tuning and ability the rotation does just change dramatically under its feet. Like, this is something that's going to constantly need maintenance. Do they have the allocation of resources to be able to maintain that? Because it will 100%. Like an add-on assistant for your rotation, patch to patch, set bonus changes, talent rebalancing, like this is an ongoing required maintenance thing that add-on developers will tell you they do, right? They're constantly having to do that to make sure that their add-on is providing the best experience. So if they don't have that allocation, I would have serious concerns. And this post right there makes it seem like maybe they're not, like it's not a deal breaker if it's exactly like the day-to-day Theorycraft discovery, Does that mean that like the following week it'll get updated, but for a couple of days it won't? Like, does it mean the next patch? Like, what's the time frame there? We're always going to be listening. Our hope is that the things we add are going to be things that can be reskinned and tweaked by add-on developers. See, again, this is just leaving the door open still, right? It's just like, you're just leaving the door open still. You don't want to close it all the way. And I can understand why, because it's like, if you don't get these add-ons right, like a lot of people I think will be mad. But it's like, how are you going to close the door on the combat conditionals, He said he was open to the idea of allowing player-shared loadouts, like the text strings currently used to share talents that might improve rotation assist for those who wanted the latest theory crafting. Again, I thought the whole point was this: you log in and you've got something out of the box that helps you play the thing you're trying to play. This is instead of going to the add-on website, now you need to have a friend. Or you're probably still going to go to Google to try and get the text string. It's still going outside of the game, so does it really solve the problem? That's an interesting idea, he said. This topic has come up with the context of edit mode layouts and other things we want to empower people to share. The overwhelming majority of add-ons won't be affected by the changes, Hazukosta stressed. Blizzard considers this a continued collaboration with add-on developers, perhaps even to the extent of partnerships that would allow amateur developers to contribute ideas or coding approaches. I mean, you should hire them, even if they're remote. Like, if they're making the most popular add-on on the planet that everybody is downloading and they've got a good track record of updating it, it's like the thing with Dota and Warcraft 3. Like, you should have hired those guys that were making the game. If there's a good add-on developer that's keeping this going, hire them. I don't understand. Like, this should literally be like American Idol for UI construction. Like, screw going to college and getting a 4-year degree and blah, 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 and you don't even play the game and da-da. Like, get the guy who's in the trenches and has been doing it for years too with a good track record. Like, this makes it almost sound like they want them to do it for free. Like, bro, hire them. They're obviously good. It's like the same thing with like Jeff Kaplan and Ian, the way they got hired. They got hired because they were super passionate about the game. They had no involvement with the company at all. They didn't even know who they were individually. Like that's how you recruit. That's how recruiting should be done. Like, that's got to be the best solution. So you have that ongoing maintenance, right? Everything is possible, he said. I don't want to close doors. Yeah, that's kind of, I was feeling that vibe reading this so far. We're always going to be listening. Our hope is that the things we add are going to be things that can be reskinned and tweaked by add-on developers. Again, it's still wishy-washy, man. Like, if you leave the door open, does that mean that they can still make the combat add-ons? The smallest change possible to achieve the goal. Hazukosis has said that the team has discussed many approaches and believed this was the least invasive path that would still accomplish the goal. This is not us setting out to smash a bunch of add-ons, he said. The way we're approaching it is, what's the least collateral damage that we can cause while addressing this issue? I guess this is all muddy. It's getting all muddy. The goal is to build up the native functionality of our UI to increasingly narrow the gap between players who are using add-ons that assist with competitive functions and those who are not. Once we are most of the way there, there's going to be that last mile that consists of things that honestly we don't think are super healthy for the game. The weak cores, the combat enhancements, right? The cooldown tracking, I think those have been the same main points. That's when the functionality would be turned off. But the thing is, if you leave the door open, can't people just find a way to gerrymander their way around it and get that add-on? And now that's going to be going into the dark web and only a small amount of people know it exists, and it's like a worse add-on problem than this one. I feel like that's an issue. If you're leaving the door open and you're not, locking down all add-ons, then people can probably still access that information somehow, and now they're gonna have to keep it a secret because you're telling them, hey, no, that's not allowed, and then they can keep it a secret, and then a minor amount of players have this advantage over other players. This is a mess, dude. I think this is gonna be a mess. This is I'm very concerned. Previously, Blizzard experimented with private auras that could not be read by add-ons and weak auras, but players circumvented that with in-game macros that told the mods when players saw they had conditions that had been kept a secret. Look at that. It's already happening, right? It's already happening. The aura is private, but you can just make a separate macro that pipes the information in, and now, whoops, you wiped because someone hit the wrong macro and had a typo in their macro, and great. We've succeeded in making it even more frustrating, Hazukosta said. Let's never do this again. He said, they're going to find a way, man. There's a lot of people. They're going to find a way. The company is building in all of this functionality in part because they know players will find ever more circuitous routes to getting the information if they don't. If boss ability timelines aren't a thing, he suggested, players might turn to YouTube videos or recorded sound files that would provide audio countdowns when pressed at the start of a heavy scripted encounter. Oh my god, dude. What the hell? I'm starting to be on the side of just turn them all off. Just turn them all like at the extent that people don't want to play WoW. You don't want to play WoW. You just want add-ons on the screen that tell you exactly what you need to do at all times with no immersion whatsoever, so you have the easiest, least likelihood of wiping to get your loot. I don't even think you want to play the game if you're doing this stuff. I legit, like, you don't even like the dungeons. You don't like the raid. You don't like the mechanics. You don't like the encounters. You don't like the interactions because you are trying to circumvent it so much that it is not even the same game. It is not even the same game if you're going this far. That sounds so ridiculous. Well, that seems so ridiculous. Keeping the challenge, ditching the complexity. Dungeon and raid fights will still be just as challenging, he said. Oh, that's a bit worrisome because I felt like they were saying that they needed to simplify things if they were going to remove the add-ons. Just not in a way that requires perfectly working weak cores. Okay, so I have to wait and see what that is. Our goal is to deliver a baseline, a consistent level of difficulty that meets players' expectations. I've seen discussion of whether WoW is harder than it used to be. If you measure that by player success rates, then no, Hazakostas said. We might tune a heroic end boss for ahead of curve to be something that's going to take a couple dozen attempts for a guild that's in the core audience. What it takes to hit that mark has continually increased in terms of complexity because our players have gotten more sophisticated. They also download more add-ons. With this move, Blizzard hopes to dismantle the arms race between add-on developers and boss mechanics. A fight like Blood Queen, Lanethel, and Ice Crown Citadel had one simple mechanic, who to bite when you had Vampiric Lust, and were about to be mind-controlled. That ramped up in difficulty over the course of the fight. It would have been trivialized by a combat weak aura, he noted. No stress, no confusion, no need for communication, no need for backups. A fight that had an exciting, frantic moment in 2009 and 10 get transformed into something that's pretty ho-hum. I agree with him, man. I agree with this. Like, you're completely... The entire essence of the game is siphoned out by a lot of these add-ons, man. They're just foghorns and boxes on the screen. Like, do people even like WoW? Do they just want to stare at the boxes and loot their shiny loot and they don't care at all? That's what I'm really wondering at this point. Less swirls, more fun for casters. In modern raids, players might see happy changes like a reduction in the number of bosses that frequently place random damage swirls on the ground, a mechanic the team has come to lean on because add-ons can't predict or help with it, he said. Our classes weren't designed under the assumption that you're going to have unpredictable movements every few seconds, making those encounters less fun for caster characters, he said. We just want more variety and a diverse design space. I think, yeah, this is good. Like, I mean, you had to find a way to scale the difficulty up that couldn't be just completely negated by an add-on. And then it's created an annoying mechanic for some of the roles in your game. Just turn them off. Just turn off the add-on. The toughest modern boss with mechanics that require players to clump up or head to specific spots might give a few more seconds to respond or have fewer spots to go. In a world without combat add-ons, he said. Yeah, so scaling back some of the mechanics. If we know it's been solved for you and you're just being told to run to Diamond, how is that challenging? Hazakostas said. How do we make it challenging? The only way is to only give you 2.5 seconds so you have some movement speed that you need to use, or you're taking a Warlock Gateway to get there, because otherwise anyone could do this. No changes for Classic, but plenty of changes to raid fights. These changes will not likely be implemented in Classic, where the team is careful to avoid messing with history. New features like the damage meter might be rolled out, but combat log and aura access is unlikely to be turned off, Hazakostas said. In the modern game, Blizzard knows this will force its developers to be better about making mechanics visible and readable. So they're okay with that. I mean, Classic mechanics have been pretty simple, right? I don't even think... If you're downloading weak cores to trivialize Classic WoW, I just feel like you're just like, you don't even like the game anymore, dude. Just play something else if you're doing that, because there's no way. I think, frankly, this will stop letting us off the hook when we fail to do so. I think also with like class abilities and in PvP, right? Like making them more obvious. I really think there's too many buffs and debuffs. There's just so many of them. Find a way to highlight them. You know, maybe you put a glow around it, like in one of my crappy thumbnails. Put a little aura glow around buffs that are the most important, right? Like and then you can classify them. Like this one is an offensive cooldown, and it's a gold one. It's just like, oh, you know, this guy activates something that's really important, or maybe their character's outline starts glowing in the same glow, and you can universalize that, and everyone understands. If I'm bringing a friend in, like if their character starts glowing gold, they're Super Saiyan. You better be ready. Like they're going to be doing something very scary. Like there's got to be something that can be done. Because then, the opposite of that, you got cooldowns like Shadow Dance on a rogue that you don't even notice. You can't. There's no visual, right? At least with Avenging Wrath and Wings, like, hey, sprouted wings. Maybe that guy's kind of intimidating. But there's other classes where their cooldowns are just completely hidden, and you have to find it in the 40 buffs that are at the top of the screen, like that type of stuff. That all that stuff needs to be updated, and it's also, I think, cooler for the player as well. It's like I get this cool animation that lines up instead of just this invisible buff that doesn't really, get you excited. If you're riding a Katamari ball on sticks, and if you run into one of these 3 nameplates, you have to raid, but there are 90 things on the screen. Good luck visually parsing that. There are nameplate attachments and things the community has come up with to help solve that problem, but we should have solved that problem. This is good. This is why this accountability, I think, is good. The wishy-washiness above, I don't know, but this accountability is good. Visual customization of nameplates, including how big they are or what they look like, will still be allowed, he said, but using conditional logic to change the way they look because of something the player or enemy is doing or a buff or debuff likely won't be. So they're trying to get into the details of this, but again, it still seems like it's pretty far down the pipe. This is all pretty speculative, Hazakostas said, as the team is still working to solve the problems that players have created mods for. Lethal casts in dungeons, for example, should be telegraphed much better, perhaps negating the need for mods to alert the player when something bad is coming. No more tracking other players or enemies. Again, a lot of players are just downloading these add-ons, so it removes the likelihood that they make a mistake, because, it can be very detrimental. You wipe your keystone, your group, your liability. Like, they're just trying to lower liabilities, right? They just want the loot at the end. But I feel like it's just like you're completely removing the immersion of the game with too many of these add-ons. Tracking of group abilities will no longer function in add-ons after the changes. So things like other players' cooldowns won't be visible, he said. That might in turn lead to dungeons with fewer interrupts and a pack of mobs, which might in turn lead to less reliance on classes with abilities to stop a whole pack of enemies from casting. Now we've got an interesting issue. So I have Omni CD, right, in PvP, and this tracks interrupts to the left of my allies, and I can see when they've got interrupted, they've got a cooldown available, and I can, use that in accordance with what I have relevant information. And in solo queue PvP environments or pugging environments with no voice, if you don't have that information to track and organize together yourself, you're just shooting from the hip. You do not know what's gonna happen. So this is like the first main PvP one that's giving me some concern, mostly for solo, right? Because when you're actually in comms with people, it is cool to say, I got the next interrupt, I'm gonna kick the next chaos bolt. But when you're not in voice comms, not knowing when people have used that type of stuff or if they have it available could be frustrating. And so maybe, this is. Now I'm sounding like I'm fighting against what I was saying earlier. Maybe I am, but now this is like, oh my God, bro, this is a huge pack of worms. Incoming heal. It makes me wonder why they didn't address this earlier. Like, what? Incoming heals will no longer be trackable, nor will specialized buffs or debuffs. But if they need to be, that should be built in the base game. What do you mean incoming heals will no longer be trackable from mobs? Or does it mean allies? Because I like knowing the flash is being casted. It's going to maybe heal me for this much on the health bar. It should be a part of the default UI, he said. Same is true for tank swaps. If we're building an encounter where once your co-tank reaches 4 stacks of some negative effect, you need to taunt immediately. We should be giving you much better information to make that apparent. That's on us. Yeah, coming up with a uniformal structure, right? Like a glowing buff that has a specific glow for a tank swap mechanic, and then you can make a list in the add-on in the dungeon journal. This borderline means tank swap mechanic, which means at a certain stack your other tank needs to taunt, and you can make it universal, right? And it's clearly outlined rules. Another issue they want to make more visible is diminishing returns in PvP and PvE, where stuns or other crowd control become less effective after repeated casts until an enemy is immune. Diminishing returns is the most invisible mechanic of the game. And it's because every ability has its own unique icon, completely distinct from the others. And you just need to know that this random icon of a fist is this same diminishing return of a hammer. And you just need to know that. So again, creating a glow on certain icons like that share DRs, hey, crowd controls with a green box mean that they're stun DRs. So if you see a green box icon next to a mob, it's been put on stun DR. Creating just a set of baseline rules that everyone can understand regardless of knowing what the class specs abilities look like, because there's 100 billion of them. Expecting the average player to know all that stuff is a lot. Come up with one universal color scheme. We have this very important mechanic, and really, unless you're using an add-on, it's not super obvious, he said. We should make it super obvious. Yes. And at the end of the day, the game should be just as easy or difficult as it is right now, he said, but for different reasons. Part of the goal of mechanics is to create the problem that needs to be solved and a bit of a challenge that feels satisfying once you overcome it, Hazakostas has said. The goal is to keep similar number of wipe counts for normal, heroic, and mythic encounters, early versus late, similar success rates, but to tailor that to a world where the problems are once again in players' own flesh and blood hands to solve and not an algorithm that they've downloaded. Which I think is a healthy goal. I think that is a really healthy goal. But it's a can of worms, bro. It's a can of worms. This is a lot to try and achieve. What do you guys think after this discussion? Like, what add-ons should be disabled in PvP? Can they deliver on in-game features that are actually aesthetically pleasing? And vital information that you feel like you need? Is that a bad idea to remove the cooldown tracking of allies? Because again, like in Shuffle, I use it all the time to know, like, did he use his wall? I don't know. And now I'm not going to know. Like, he could die without bubbling, and maybe he didn't have bubble, and now I'm going to get mad, but he didn't have bubble, but I can't see that because there's a lot. Let me know in the comments down below. But that's it here for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. Thank you guys once again very much for watching. Smash the subscribe button if you really want to help me out, support me out here on the channel. Try to relay news, educational, entertaining content. As always, it is appreciated. So thank you and have a good one.